Hey folks, welcome back. Path to Recovery. Episode number 6, we're actually talking about the lifelong process. Okay, this is going to introduce you to the time frame. A lot of people wonder, how long is this going to take me? How long is that going to take me? Ultimately, it's an individual concept, but at the same time, it's not really governed by time. It's governed by effort. I have with me Lora Lee. She is my partner in this healing process that we've been going through. She's also my spiritual partner as well as my life partner, so she brings a different perspective of this same thing. We both are coming into this with being recovering or recovered, depending on how far we want to go with it, addicts. 2 different lifestyles, 2 different directions, but both understanding the power behind the addictions and the troubles that it causes, as well as getting us to start trying to heal and what the process is for that.
There is no time involved when it comes to the healing process, and Bear and I walked together in this path, but we had a path before we became partnered, and I wanted to push the process of healing because I wanted it now, and that's the way most of us addicts look at everything, is instant gratification. And I think that's what we're going to kind of look at is people always want to know, well, how long is it going to take me to get clean? I got this appointment next week and I just need to pass a test, the urine test, or we're trying to just scoot by on life as best we can and still maintain the feelings that we want to feel. There is no time limit to your healing, guys.
I think one of the things that we need to really push across for the point is that you're here listening to this podcast. That means you've either stumbled on it or you've listened to some of the other podcasts that we've done. If you have, then you understand that we're kind of committed to helping as many people get to this healing place as possible. But it also tells us that you have a desire somewhere deep inside you. There's a desire for you to get away from the lifestyle, the crash and burn that you're living. When we're talking about addictions, it doesn't have to be chemical, or it doesn't have to be alcohol, it doesn't have to be sex or anything else. It could be different addictions. There's a lot of people out there with straight up addictions on technology and social media.
Relationships,
absolutely. They could be just
buying stuff.
Right? The economic addiction.
Food addictions, not just food as in overeating. Even those folks who want to eat healthy, it becomes an addiction to look at all of
I guess what we're trying to say is there's a behavior behind this concept. It's a constant with people that have addictions. There are people that will do everything to a high level.
We are compulsive by nature.
Yeah. So with that, we're saying, well, what did it take to get you to where you are? I can look back at my life and, at 13, I was drinking. At 15, I was a very seasoned alcoholic. I could walk around town with a 5th of Jack Daniels and polish it off and not feel too affected by it. That to me, even then, I can recall how dangerous it seemed, but I had a lot of trauma in my life that I was seeing as trauma and that I felt as trauma, that the only way I could figure out a way to get through stuff was to hide it. And then it took me about 30 years of drinking, not just drinking socially, but drinking for the sake of that complete obliteration. Doing a lot of things that were stupid, being drunk, and then it just comes to a point in time where it says, well, when am I going to stop? When am I going to get off the crazy train and start living a healthy life? So in order to change something that's 30 to 40 years in the making, or 5 years in the making, or 6 months of addiction in the making, it's not going to take 1 hour of listening to us.
It's not an overnight deal.
Yeah. They have pills to stop you from doing stuff. A pill is a mask, or a pill is getting you off one thing to get you on another. A lot of people are trying, it's like they redirect their addiction to something else. Some people take their drug addiction or their alcohol addiction or whatever addiction, and they just try to get on a healthy addiction. Do you have to starve yourself if you have an eating disorder? If you're constantly addicted to putting food in your mouth, does that mean you have to starve yourself? Or does that mean you can only drink liquids for the rest of your life and that's it? That's the solution to your problem. All it did was transfer the problem from one area to another.
Bear and I obviously have 2 different stories. For me, I started using in about 1976. I was about 9 years old. And I remained in an addiction. My drug of choice was heroin, among any other barbiturate that I could get my hand on. It didn't start that way. It lasted for 24 years.
Right.
I didn't get clean until I was in my 30s. I didn't know what life was. Even in my 30s, I was constantly in survival mode. And you go through the process of life as an addict. I lived in constant fear of being caught, being the addict. I had to hide it from everybody, and I was very successful with it. My mother would even catch things around my house or in my possession, and I would play it off, of course, that it was somebody else's. And I grew into that hiding who I actually was. I put on many masks and went by many names. It's just where my drug of choice took me. So what I can say is after 24 years, when I made a decision, when it was my time to get clean, I didn't know what that time looked like. All I knew was I was tired of sitting in pools of blood because I couldn't find veins anymore. I had blown them all out.
What was one of the things that brought you to the decision it's time to stop?
My whole life I knew it was time to stop. It wasn't that I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to be an addict, and I knew that that was not the design for me. What I did know is that I had spent a lifetime of dying, and I didn't know what it was like to live.
Right.
I had no clue what that looked like. And I had 4 children, technically 5, but I have 4 children, and that I was raising them in the addiction. And, you know, what a process for an individual to go through and come to the terms of, I didn't want to be a 65-year-old woman making a phone call on the corner of the street waiting for the connection to arrive. And I knew that it was optional if I lived to be 65.
So your vision wasn't necessarily that you were going to be 65.
No.
Your vision was, okay, today I'll be alive and maybe tomorrow, but not much more than that.
I never planned to live. Living wasn't what I was planning on ever.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is in my process, I lived for the day. And I lived for the moment.
Right.
Because that's all I had, but it's all I understood.
Right. So the process you found that helped you on the path to recovery, what was there a catalyst
there was
for
an
you?
Absolute catalyst event for me. And that was, I was in trouble and I was seriously dying. And I looked at my child who was pounding on the door. Actually, I couldn't see her, but I heard her. Sorry. And she was crying, "Mommy, let me in. Mommy, please let me in. Let me see you." And I could not let her see me because I had to clean the blood off of the floor and the blood off of my body, and I was in absolute tears. And I couldn't do it anymore. I asked God to take me out of it. I want him to let me go. Just let me die. And instead, what came out of my mouth was, "If you would just get me clean, I'll do all the work. I'll do everything else. Please just get me clean." And for me, within 3 days, the cops had broke down my door with a warrant for my arrest for selling drugs. And in that moment, it's not that I said, "Oh wow, there's God." Mm-hmm. In that moment, I thought, "Oh shit." But I saw my whole life pass before me, and I figured that I was going to be gone for a very long time. I didn't know how that was going to look. It wasn't until later on that I had actually had to take a look and go, wow. Within 3 days, my miracle happened. It began.
It began.
Yeah.
Right, because you didn't like go cold turkey, did you?
Yeah, I did.
But was there other issues that arose in the years between then and now that provided other forms of addiction? Were there any pills or anything else that became like the substitute for something? Because for me, it was alcohol was just all it was. Once I was able to get past the alcohol, I think the only addiction I have in my life is like hiking. For you, was it cold turkey? You never did it again, and that was the end of it, and you were healed? Or was it just the beginning?
I would say it was the end of my heroin addiction. It was the end of the pill addiction for me being the chemist that I was, okay. Right? Because I was an absolute chemist. Crack cocaine took me to the depths of hell that even heroin couldn't take me. The range of my drug use was profound. And I can only say that now because when I went in front of the judge as he was going to deliver my sentence, it was like, how do you even know what color shirt you're wearing? He said, because you've got 15 different kinds of narcotics.
In your bloodstream? In
my bloodstream, and you should be dead. Yeah. And the fact is when they arrested me and I went to jail, I did die.
Right.
my heart and my body couldn't take it.
Right.
So they had to actually remove me from that situation and put me into the hospital and observe me for quite a period of time.
And knowing that, what year are we on now? Sober?
I'm on year 18.
Right. So what was it that got you through these 18 years? Was there a process? Was there steps to recovery? Was there...
For me, I had to be removed from my surroundings, and that's the absolute truth, because I tried to get clean. I tried everything humanly possible. They had subliminal messaging. They had staples in the ears. They had, here, take this, and it'll take your need for heroin addiction away. I just add that to the pile.
Right.
It was a concoction of all this stuff. But nothing ever worked because I didn't know how I couldn't get clean. Because if I had to get clean, I couldn't feel normal. And you leave me alone in my surroundings. I felt I needed to use heroin and methadone and all of those drugs just so I could feel even. So I could be like every other human in society that looked normal.
Yeah. In your perception of normal, right?
For me, people looked normal, and I couldn't let them know what I was feeling like or looking like on the inside.
Now, did you do a 12-step program? Did you do...
I did. I was removed. I got locked up for a while, and I had to go through that adventure. And then they placed me into a rehabilitation center. Mm-hmm. And it was inpatient. They didn't want me to go home, and because they knew.
Right.
They knew, they had bets on me that of failing, because most heroin addicts like me don't make it.
Right.
They don't come back out of it.
Right.
And they keep falling off, and then it's prison, and then, it's all that stuff. And I went through their program successfully. I completed it. And what always came up to me was I made God a promise. And the rooms of recovery for me look like jail, in-house patient, to learn new skills to the best, basics. Mm-hmm. And then they sent me into a program that had just begun, the drug court program in California. And told me it was either that or, I got 4 years in prison. And that's kind of like a no-brainer. So I went into the program, and it was very rigid for me. It was making sure that I drug tested every day. And I had to do a meeting every day. And there was always something I had to do every day. And mind you, I didn't know how to do anything every day but use drugs. I didn't know how to take care of my children without drugs. That was the only
thing you had in your skill set that you could count on every day.
Every day. And no matter the process of what it took to get the drugs, I knew that was a goal. So I was diligent.
The stepping away from it became learning a new process of something to do every day. It might not have been the same thing every day, but you had to start learning, okay, I have to do this tomorrow.
They set me on a track of there were things that I had to accomplish, and if I didn't do these tasks as hand, very simple, that there was another option. I always had an option, and we all have options.
Right.
For me, though, I made a deal with God, and it meant something to me.
Yeah.
I promised my God that I would not do this again. If he could just find me a way out, I'd do everything. And that's what I did.
During these daily activities that you'd have to do, were you always recognizing that that's God doing what you asked him to do?
I did.
You were able to see an activity and say, oh, I'm supposed to do this today. I'm supposed to learn how to cook bacon or something. I don't know. I don't even know what you did. But when you see that, was that like your epiphany moments of going, okay, yep, I get it. I understand. I asked you for it, and this is what you're giving me. Thanks, God, for this lesson. I'm going to take it one day at a time.
I'd say yes, not in the cooking bacon, but I was in the rooms, and I started with Alcoholics Anonymous, of course, and then for me, I was not feeling the fit. And we have several different anonymous programs, so I tried NA. And in the NA, what I found is the man who actually bought the drugs from me, of which was the reason why I was busted. So you could say the man who told the cops after he got busted who he got the drugs from, was sitting in the front row. I knew many of us in our position knew who ratted on me or told on me.
Right.
And I saw him in the rooms, and I watched him cower. And as I stood up to speak through the words of NA, I had actually had to tell people without fronting him off. I had to go forth and speak and say, you know what, I wouldn't be clean today if it wasn't for the man that actually got busted and told on me.
All right, so you're saying this. In your head, was there a little bit of I'm going to stab you in the back quietly? Or was it, you know what, I just need to let you know because I know you're going through a hard time. I need to let you know that I'm healing and that you can heal and that we can both heal. Was this God wants me to step up?
I think in that moment I was still rather clouded, but yet it had been several months that I had been clean. And just seeing him, I knew that I wanted him to feel okay.
Yeah.
Even though what had happened in his life, I wanted him to know that we weren't going to go hang out, right? We weren't going to go hang out. But the fact was, I got to say in those rooms, I forgive you. And I had to look away because my eyes wanted to look at him and just focus on him and let him know if it wasn't for you, I would not be here.
The one angel out of the world came to you in the form of a backstabber, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yet it wasn't. It was the catalyst that helped you make that final stand.
It was the absolute catalyst.
Yeah.
I thank that man.
I think that everybody or anybody that is going through a healing process or has gone through it could probably look back to that one moment. I mean, ultimately, that's what it comes down to, doesn't it?
It does.
That one moment where we say, I'm done. We either say we're done or we are done.
As addicts, we have many moments that say, you know what, I'm done. I'm throwing my rigs out. I'm breaking my pipe. I'm over this. I'm not going to do it again.
Right.
And then within 20 minutes, you're like, yeah, I feel like shit. I'm going to the store. I'm going to go.
But what I'm getting at is that for anybody that's healing or has healed through their process, their addictions or their issues, it's almost like you could look back, turn the clock back to a catalytic moment. More times than not, like we talk a lot, more times than not, it takes a major happening in our lives, usually not good, to make us change. So for you, it was that gentleman that threw you under the bus. But without it, you probably would still be doing what you were doing. For me, it was a moment that I had with my sister that she was my angel. Whatever her words were was, give me a minute. Can you give me a minute? So you get to take that catalytic moment and know that your life changed from that point on. So if anybody's out there dealing with a situation or they're X years sober, whatever that is, you can look back and say, this was the day or the moment, not even the day, the moment I remember so clearly, the moment where I said enough was enough.
Well, and a lot of us, I think a lot of us being addicts, you actually got to say enough is enough and had an angel walk into your life. For me, even though I said enough was enough 10 billion times, it was never enough.
Right.
The moment of clarity came from, my time might be up. I had wished to be clean and I thought, Yeah. It wasn't a moment that I got to choose. It was a moment that was chosen for me because of my internal request. Right?
Your request was your choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Internal, my heart cried out for help.
Yeah.
It's kind of like going to the universe and going, okay, I got nothing left.
I'm either done or I'm going to be turning a corner. What's coming? And then it's always comes down to be careful what you ask for because you might get a hard kick in the ass. Because you're going to
get it, yeah.
And you got a hard kick in the ass, which was good. Everybody will tell you, everybody that's recovering or has recovered from an addiction of any sort or traumatic issues, they will tell you it's a day-to-day, moment-by-moment scenario.
I lived in the moment in my addiction, and I do have to tell you that even though I am sober, I'm clean, I still live in the moment, but I do it by choice. Now I live in the moment not because it's survival, because I want this moment to be this moment. Yeah. Not that I don't obsess about the future or worry about the future. I'm still, human. I do still have those things. But it is all about the moment because at any moment you can always change your mind.
And in order to be able to get to those points of thought, we talk about this a lot. Plus our spiritual path brought us here. The belief concept wrapped around the human has to believe that we're going to be good, that we're going to have a good day, that we're going to be okay, that we're going to be healthy today. Or when I wake up and, you do the prayer to God, or you just wake up and say, whoo, let's have a good one. There's got to be a deeper connection inside each being that says, I believe I can be happy. I believe I deserve to be happy. I deserve to be clean. I deserve to walk today without a thought of going backwards. So we've got to kind of create this belief system. And I think that's part of the healing. It's the major catalyst to the healing. Because if you don't believe that you can be healthy, you certainly can't think that you're going to be healthy.
That's correct.
Because if you don't believe it, your thoughts are going to come out with I don't believe I can be healthy. Therefore, my actions are going to kind of walk that path.
I think everybody is so different on a recovery process. Some of us stay in the rooms of an anonymous program. Some of us venture out and try new techniques in Buddhism or Hindu, or, they get into the dogmas or the dharmas, and we go to God, find a religion. Some of us go to God, find spirituality. Sometimes we want to become the God. I mean, there's so many different concepts that we look for. When we are absolutely in our addiction, there is not any of us that truly feel valued. And so how do we make a decision of, I want to get clean, when we don't even feel that it's possibility? Right. The core values, I don't know of any addicts that say, you know what, okay, so I'm thinking I'm a pretty good cat, I'm a nice human being, I just don't want to do this addiction thing anymore, and I'm going to quit. Bless your heart if that's been your story. But most of us, and for me, that was not the story. It was entirely the opposite. I didn't have that going on at all. And in fact, I don't even think I really understood. I was choosing to be happy. I had even going through the anonymous programs. I don't even think that I knew what my core values or beliefs were until maybe four years ago.
Right.
And I'm sitting on 18 years clean. Can it be done? Absolutely. Is it a struggle? Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily just the one part. The addiction becomes deeper than the addiction.
The addiction becomes bringing people into your life that allow you to still feel the way you do even when you're clean.
Right.
If you're still feeling depressed, you can be, as they call it in the anonymous rooms, it's, you can still be a dry drunk. It doesn't mean that you've changed because you quit drinking. You're still a prick when you're not drinking.
You're still doing
the same stuff. The
right.
behavior doesn't change. The belief system still doesn't change. You're just not doing the drugs anymore.
Right. So then the belief system needs to have an adjustment of sorts. There has to be some sort of shakeup in the belief system of the individual to be able to create the next step. At some point in time, it seems like everyone wants to get that healthy healing, but stopping.
We forget to show up for ourselves. I've told many people along my path, did you show up for yourself today? And it kind of hit me today with a friend of ours that had contacted me and said, I remember what you told me about showing up for myself. I never showed up for myself. I always showed up for everybody else. And I have to say that even to this day, 18 years later, there is a lot of days where I don't show up for me. I'm still showing up for other people.
Yeah.
But you know what? I get to be 18 years clean.
Right.
And the problem when I went into the rooms in the very beginning, what I found out was the problem was not the fact that I was using drugs.
Right.
It had nothing to do with my problems.
Yeah.
My problems, like you said, core beliefs. I got to recognize that in the rooms, in the anonymous rooms that I chose, and for me, I eventually chose Cocaine Anonymous because it was still much more focused and regimental. It needed to get me in line. But I knew that my problem was me. It wasn't the drugs that I was using. The problem stemmed from not only did I believe that I had no worth and no value, but I started using it as a child. So when we start making those decisions to use drugs as a child, what is it that we're actually feeling and or believing about ourselves? No 9-year-old child or 13-year-old child consciously makes a decision to go, you know what, I think I'm just going to be an addict now.
Right.
There's something that's taking place in our life that allows us to feel and project our lack. Right. Our lack of caring about ourselves, the fact that we trusted people to look after us and they didn't.
Lack of deservability.
That absolutely, absolutely. We don't deserve to be loved. It's been shown to me. Yeah. Because of the actions of others. So I forgot to take responsibility as I got older.
Right.
I needed to be in there. I couldn't count on somebody else to get me clean. I couldn't count on something else to get me clean. And I tried every which way possible.
Right.
I could only get clean, but that dude in that rehab, boy, that freaked me out. So I was gone.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I always had an excuse for why I couldn't do it.
The blame game. Blame and shame. It's like we're trying to redirect to make ourselves feel better.
Yeah.
Because we don't believe that we could feel better.
We believe that it was because of our circumstances and everything that took place in our life that made it to where we no longer had a choice and we became the way we did because of circumstance.
The reason I started drinking was a parental divorce, whatever. Not that big a deal. In the scheme of things, it doesn't sound it. But for me, it hit me as hard as anything could hit me. So it wasn't because my parents got a divorce that I decided to drink. It wasn't because people around me were drinking that I decided to drink. It wasn't because of any outside influence that I chose to take a drink. And when I did, I just said, well, if one's good, 13 must be really cool. And, waking up in your own vomit the next day and kind of going, wow, that was bizarre. What is wrong with my head? And still believing that I still needed to go to alcohol. Even after, those first experiences of kicking my own ass, it's like, no, alcohol is exactly where I want to go. So making that choice is on us. It's not on anybody outside us. It'll never be any outside resource or any outside activity that brings us to the point of making that choice of saying, yeah, I think I need to shoot up to be happy. I think I need to have sex with 42 people to be happy.
I don't know if most of us even look at the aspect of being happy.
Or getting away from whatever it is, hiding from the truth.
I'm kind of like, wow, that felt good. That's the only moment that I felt good, that I felt like, oh, man, I could be a rock star.
Right.
And it'd be okay.
Think about this. We're doing another podcast with concept of Star Wars flowing into it. Think about this. This is just like what we were talking about from the Comic-Con, a place where people go up and dress up as somebody else and allow themselves to be a part of an organization or a gathering of people, like-minded people that get to hide behind a mask. I mean, that's ultimately what we're all doing. Somewhere in our lives, we developed an inability to cope with what life is throwing at us. And that inability, we go into a panic and it's like, I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to cry. I don't want to hurt. Let me disguise it as something else. We do it all the time. Every time we try to avoid the truth. Regurgitating a lie means that we're trying to hide from the potential, the theory of pain that's going to come with telling the truth. So we create something. We make a conscious choice inside ourselves that, you know what, I'm going to feel better if I do this instead of doing that.
I agree with you. You're talking about the masks and pretending like we're somebody else. Funny with me is I went by many names. And when I say I went by many names, it's not even an understatement. I went by many names, and
Your lifestyle
was
directed.
raised in many different cultures. And I got to tell you, when I was finally arrested, when I was 34 years old, I went to jail, and I decided at that moment that I was going to be me and not anybody else. So I made the collect phone call to the house to let everybody know it's okay. And my young daughter answered the phone, and I believe she was probably 8, 9 years old. Right. And when I said my name on the collect call, do you know that she said, I don't know who that is? And she hung up the phone.
That's a real kick in the reality.
My child didn't know my name.
Right.
And in fact, none of my children
knew
my name was. Right. They had no idea who that was on the other end. I actually had to call back and go to mom.
Right.
Without using the identity that I was going with at that time.
Right. That's pretty tough.
Listen to her apologetically, oh, Mom, I'm sorry that I didn't know. But the fact was she didn't know me.
Right. Because you wouldn't allow that to happen anyway, as a protection for the children, right? Among other things. Mm-hmm. So we do what we do best when we start talking. We kind of veer off from the topic. As you can understand from our conversations here, there isn't like a time limit. There isn't a set time that it's going to take you to get from point A to point B, from addiction or unhealthy to healthy or sober. The reality is that everything is based on your desires. It's based on whether or not you're ready to commit to making that life-altering change. Or whether you're put into a situation where you have two options and none of them are good, but one is better. The lesser of evils.
Are you ready to show up for yourself?
Yeah.
You want to be different. Would you like to be free?
The question you'll have to ask yourself over and over is, does it really matter how long it's going to take? What difference does it make if it takes me 2 years or if it takes me 20 years? The reality is that you've got to be committed to it. You got to be able to want and desire it. It's not something that you can do like Lora Lee was saying before. It's not something where you can just, I'm going to just do it just so I can get by and get that piss test out of the way. It's something where you have to, deep in your heart and soul, you have to know that it's time. It's done. It's time to go on the healthier path. It's time to go on the drug-free, the alcohol-free, the addiction-free.
You can do the whole fake it till you make it deal. I think I even ran on that one for a while, and I'm still here. But the fact is, sometime along the line, you have to kind of face yourself and go, when do I not want to be faking it anymore?
Right.
is this when I need to do better things, make better choices for my family, for myself.
Responsibilities, accountability.
Being accountable in the life of humanity in our distorted ways.
Of whatever we will then kind of meld into humanity's existence, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I took 24 years out there. I got to tell you, when I got sober, I went back to being 9 years old because that's where I left off.
As you were saying before, one of the catalysts was to take you out of your environment, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a major piece of healing. I did the same thing. For me, it was 24 weeks total of being away from everybody and everything. Anything that would put me in a place where my mind wouldn't be at its best. I was removed from it, living in a tent, going to the therapy sessions and just kind of saying, you know what? I don't need people around me because right now that's my problem. And my inability to relate and cope and to deal with stressful situations. So to be removed sometimes is such a drastic choice, but sometimes it's the only choice we have, depending on what level it is. And that's not necessarily going to be the answer for everybody, because some people really do well in group settings. Some people can really do well in a one-on-one with a therapist of some sort.
It's going to take as long as it takes.
Yeah, there's no...
That's the truth. Do yourself a favor and start somewhere. Begin again.
Yeah, it gets easier every day.
It took me 3 years to come off the methadone to feel actually
any
kind of sleeping pattern.
But that's not you as a person. That's you as the body dealing with the chemical product in it.
Neurologically, I was absolutely malfunctioning.
Yeah. I was malfunctioning, but I don't think it was drug related. It was just me being me. Yeah, so everybody's going to have a different path, but it's all the same concept that we're all walking together. There's plenty of people, as you can just hear in this podcast, an alcoholic and a heroin addict talking to you about the process. Know that no matter what path you're walking and you're struggling through, there's always somebody or groups of people or thousands of people that have done it successfully and are willing to help, because we all know what it takes to get to where we are. And we all know the struggles that are going to come with it. Look, folks, we're walking together. We're not.
But you can see how scattered we are, so.
So anyway, thank you very much, folks. This has been wonderful. As usual, I love talking with Lora Lee, having her on the other side of the microphone with me. It's a beautiful part of our relationship that we can actually share together and to try and help everybody go through their tough times. So thank you very much. We will be seeing you on our next episode.
Just remember, show up for yourself. It's time for you to show up for yourself. Remember, people matter and you matter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.